Hello, everyone. Welcome to session 2 of our BYU Bootcamp. So excited to have you here. We've also got Susie, our instructor for the evening. She's amazing. So excited for you guys to learn from her. Let's give it about 30 seconds. We'll put on the Cougar Fight song while we wait for people to trickle in. Okay, we always stop that at the worst moment, but hope you're feeling in the spirit, feeling that BYU Cougar energy. Once again, thank you for being here. This is session number 2. We'll have another one at the same time next week. This is focused on the 3 essays that we didn't talk about last time. So essays 3, 4, and 5, and we'll get really into the tactical, into the brass tacks for you. Quick announcement and introductions. We are so excited to have a sponsor, Granite Credit Union, tonight. This is free because of sponsors like this and donations from people like you. Also, Granite, they're awesome. They've offered that anyone who opens an account that's on this call tonight will have $50 deposited into that account. We'll send all the links, but you'll apply at granite.org/membership and use that promo code BYU50 bonus, and you will see $50 landed in your account for nothing. So thank you. Shout out Granite Credit Union for that. On top of that, they're giving away 5 $2,000 scholarships only to people that have registered for the boot camp. So your chances of winning are pretty dang good. So we'll send the link to apply to that a little bit later. All you have to do is send in an essay that you're already going to write, and they'll choose 5 people that are on this call to win those scholarships. As a quick reminder, for our 4th session, in 2 weeks, we'll be doing it at the Provo Kiln. We'll be streaming live from there. So if you're in Utah, if you're in the area, please come and join. We'll have pizza and coaches and lots going on. You'll be able to meet us as well. We'd love to meet you. You can register at bit.ly/BYU watch party. We will send the link in a chat to that as well. You met me last week, so I won't stay too long on this. Thank you for the people that emailed me with questions about their application. Love helping you guys. Here to help you find the right resources, and excited to continue along with this. I would love to introduce you to the true star of the show tonight, though, Susie. Susie, you want to introduce yourself to everyone here?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here tonight. So I've been doing essay coaching for over 17 years. I'm a writer. I also taught English, and so I have a lot of experience with that. I've taught lots. I've helped a lot of BYU students and then students in grad programs, and a lot of programs write excellent essays and help them with their applications. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about me because I really want to help you guys get ready to write 3 essays. But so that's me. I'm excited to be here.
Some of you who went to our BYU panel may know Susie from that. Susie's amazing. She's one of our best BYU coaches on the platform. Have only heard amazing accolades about the people that have worked with Susie and gotten into BYU with Susie. Quick overview for tonight. We'll be covering essays 3, 4, and 5, efforts that have fallen short, the contribution, and then what is your story. Susie, do you want to highlight anything about these kind of high level?
Yeah, so number 3, overcoming defeat. We're going to talk about you're going to think about a time that's been really hard for you and what you've done to overcome. What is your story is all about how you can uniquely contribute to the BYU community. And then why BYU is all about why you would rather go to BYU than other excellent universities because of its unique mission. So that's the overview.
Awesome. For those of you who did the pre-work, good on ya. If you haven't, if you want to go into that email that we sent you and pull that up, we'll be referencing these, and it will be nice to have throughout tonight. Thank you, Susie, for putting these together. They're super helpful. The pre-work too, guys, is for you guys. They are optional. You don't have to do them, but we highly recommend doing them, and we highly recommend doing it with a parent or a coach or someone that can help you make sure you're filling them out as well as possible. Okay, with that, let's get started with the BYU essay number 3. Susie, I'm going to turn it over to you from here.
Great. Okay, so before we start talking about it, I would love for you to have either open up a new document on your computer or a new sheet of paper, because what we're going to do this whole time is I'm going to give you all the insights and information that I can, and I would love for you to write down all of your ideas. So by the time we're done with this, you'll have all the ideas you need and to write through these three essays. So as much work as you can put into it now, you will be happy you did it at the end, because you'll be ready to write. And so I'm gonna ask for you to put your ideas in the chat. We'll get into a couple breakout rooms, and all of those, you'll get as much out of them as you put into them. So just try and work really hard and be collaborative with each other, and I think you'll get a ton out of this. So here's the question for BYU essay number 3. Briefly describe a time that your efforts have fallen short, a goal was not accomplished, or an aspiration was not achieved. What steps did you take to recover from this defeat? What resources did you use, and how and why are you different today? I want to point out a couple of things. If you'll notice, the first section gives you 500 characters to reply, and then the second section gives you 1,500, which means the actual defeat or disappointment that you decide to write about, you're not going to have a whole lot of time or the spaces to write about it. That's going to be brief. The more important part of the essay is the 1,500 characters they give you to explain how you recovered, what resources you used, and how and why you are different. So I just want you to keep that in mind as we go along. I would like to ask you a question, and please put the answers in the chat. Why do you think there are only 5 essays that BYU asks you to write? Why do you think that this is one of them? What do you think BYU wants to know about you by asking this question, having you write about this prompt? They could have asked a lot of different questions. Okay, shows you how you problem solve, how we can deal with and overcome failure, how you overcome obstacles, how you handle adversity, shows resilience, shows how you can persevere. Okay, excellent. I guarantee you, they know you can be successful in college when things are difficult. That's exactly right. I guarantee you that no matter what has been difficult in life so far for you, there's going to be something of equal or greater difficulty that happens when you get to college. And they want to know that you have faced something and that you've been proactive in taking steps to get over it or to recover, and you've used resources and you've grown from it. So this is a really important essay for BYU to understand about you. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is just get out a pencil and paper or on your document, and I'd like you just to start writing ideas. And there are no bad ideas at this point. So as I'm reading these, just start writing ideas. When have you not accomplished an important goal? So it can be academic, music, sports, hobbies, a spiritual goal, a physical goal. When have you aspired to something and not achieved it? This can be huge feelings of disappointment or regret, or smaller ones. You can write about either. Or then when have you really hoped for something and it just hasn't happened? So go ahead and start writing. I'm going to give you about 2 more minutes to write. Try and write the entire 2 minutes. Even if you're not sure what to write, just keep writing. So go ahead and go. I'll just give you a few more ideas. When you felt like a huge failure, when you've been embarrassed, when you've worked really, really hard for something and it just hasn't happened. Okay, I'll give you about 20 more seconds. All right, I want you to take a minute and look at everything you've written, and we're going to go to the next slide, and I want you to look at everything you've written with this in mind. On the next slide. Okay. So you may have a lot of things, you may have only a few things. As you're looking at what you've written down, you are going to decide what experience to share based on these 3 questions. Can you pinpoint or determine specific things you did to recover from this defeat or disappointment? Specific steps you took? And along with those, can you pinpoint or determine the resources you used to help? And then also, are you able to think about a before and an after? Before this happened, you were a certain way, and after it happened, you're a different way, and you were able to grow somehow from this experience. So please take a second, and based on those 3 things, try and mark 1 or 2 of your ideas as the one that would be most likely to work for this essay for you. 1 ideally, but if you're down to 2, that's fine too. I just want you to narrow it down if you can. And I know this is tricky, so we are going to, I'm going to help you out a little bit by kind of showing you what one of a successful admit wrote about, and then having you kind of break it down to see how this student actually did it. So
I'm sorry. Could you repeat what you just said for the last thing you just said? I didn't get that part.
So what we're going to do, I'm not sure how far back, but what we're going to do is I'm going to read you an essay that a successful admit wrote, and then we're going to kind of break it down so we can see what steps and resources and she used and how and why she was different. So if we'll go to the next slide, we're going to go into breakout rooms in a minute. But before we do, I want to read you the beginning of this student's essay. What you see on your screen is the second part. So the very beginning of this student's overcoming defeat essay says this: in English class, I was assigned a presentation which involved one of my greatest fears, public speaking. My whole life I had struggled with this, and it was extremely debilitating. This prevented me from giving talks in church, presentations in class, and even sharing my personal insights in a group setting. Knowing this, I had spent hours practicing this particular speech. However, once I got to the front of the class, I froze and began crying, feeling as embarrassed and ashamed as ever. So that is her 500 character, that is her disappointment, defeat. The next part of the essay is what I have on your screen. And what I would like you to do once you get into your breakout groups is read this part of the essay together. Please turn on your screens, unmute yourselves. This can be really helpful. And I want you as a group to decide what steps she used to recover and what resources she used. So you're going to read it together and find the steps she wrote about and the resources she wrote about. So I'm going to go ahead and have Amelia put you into groups, give you about 4 minutes to do this, and you are welcome to write anything that you come up with in the chat. Well, you can have one person in your group write some ideas in the chat as you're figuring it out.
Cool. Thanks, guys. And yes, as Susie said, please engage. If you're not in a place where you can turn on your camera, that's fine. Just stay in this main session. We want everyone that goes into the breakout rooms to be in a place where they can chat. Take a screenshot of the screen, because I don't think you'll see the screen once you go into your breakout room. So take a quick screenshot of the prompt so that you know what to reference when we get in the breakout rooms. I'll give you like 10 seconds to do that. I know, Susie, the breakout rooms on Zoom are not super conducive.
Okay, sorry, I
Not
didn't,
super
yeah.
helpful sometimes.
Okay,
Okay, awesome. I'm going to open up those breakout rooms. And again, if you're not in a place to talk, just ignore the invitation and stay in this main room with us. Thanks.
okay. Does that mean nobody stayed?
Yes, everyone in this room is staying, and then other people are joining their breakout rooms. It looks like we've got quite a few in breakout rooms.
Okay,
Also, if you're not seeing an invitation to join a breakout room, let me know and I can add you to a room. Susie, do you want me to put you into a room or do you want to stay in this one?
why don't I just stay in this one?
Okay, great.
Okay. All right, so for the people who are in this room, can you just kind of say hey if you're in the room so we can know how many are in here?
Looks like there's like 80 here, but I think some of them may not be in a place where they can get off.
Okay, okay. Okay. All right. So let's just read this to yourself is probably the fastest way to do it. And then why don't you just start putting in the chats a step that she took to recover? I'm gonna there are at least 3 of them that are in here. And you can use a phrase that she wrote or just a word from the phrase.
There was nobody else in my breakout room, so I was wondering if I could be put in a different one.
Yep, let me add you right now.
Thank you.
All right, and anyone in this room can also unmute and just, okay, over and over. So over and over on a piece of paper, she wrote affirmations. Okay, that's one of the steps. Yes, for sure. Positive daily affirmations, journaling. Repetition. She turned to someone she trusted for help. So the voice notes app on her phone to record it is kind of like the affirmations, but it's a different step. It's an additional step she took. So she identified the struggle and made a goal to change it. Okay. Now, what do you think that the resources, so the resources and the steps are kind of, sometimes they kind of overlap. So for example, the voice notes app would have been a resource for her affirmations, if that makes sense. So when you're thinking about your steps and your resources, they are very closely linked. She worked on it daily. Okay, so let's see what else we've got here. Okay, the very first thing that she listed is she turned to her dad, which somebody already wrote that. She turned to her dad. So that's actually a step she took, and her dad was a resource. So that can combine, if that makes sense.
Susie, let's give people like an extra 2 minutes. I'm moving people to make sure they get into a room with people.
Okay, that's great. Okay, and then let's read this last sentence. Once I got them out of my head and onto paper, this would have been the negative thoughts. I could move on and leave the negative thoughts behind, enabling me to grow and work towards my aspirations. So this is something, it's still a step. She got them onto paper and then she was able to move forward. So that's another step she took in order to like overcome. So all of these, even they're very much connected, but they're also separate. So I want you to notice that she started by talking to her dad, and she listened to him, and then she decided to use her mind and do the affirmations. And then she used the voice app to help. So there was a series of steps and a series of resources that she used together. Does anyone have anything else they've seen or any other questions about kind of how she went about this in this paragraph? Somebody did say repetitions, and she did this every morning. So this is something that she put into her schedule and her routine. So that would have been a step as well. Instead of just doing it just every once in a while, she made sure that it was a very regular thing in her routine.
Susie, I like Burnham's point that she identified what the problem was and then like actively worked to change it. Like, I think what's cool about that is it shows intention. It's not just like, oh, this happened to me and I changed as a result. It was like, I did this and then this happened.
I love it. You're right. Because without identifying it as specifically as she did, then these steps, she probably wouldn't have actually done these specific steps because she knew a lot of it was in her mind. So she had to figure out how to change the narrative in her mind. So that's excellent. I've heard a lot of people write about failing or not making a sports team. Would you recommend writing about something else? Writing about something else will be a little more unique. Not making a sports team can be done, but it has to be very uniquely your story. It has to be all about the specific things that happened to you in your story, in your mind, all the conversations. But if you have something else, it would stand out a little more because it'll be more unique. All right. Are we back, Amelia? Or are we still?
We're back, but it takes a couple seconds for the breakout rooms to close, but everyone is joining again.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone. So I hope you were able to, I hope this was helpful to see a way that this applicant wrote about, she first wrote about the defeat and then she wrote about the steps. And I'm going to just kind of give a summary of some of the things that have come through the chat. And if there's something else that anyone wants to add in the chat, please do. So she really wanted to finally learn to speak in front of crowds, and she decided to make a change. So one of the steps she did was talk to her dad. And then she kind of decided that she determined that it was in her mind that the narrative in her mind was what was keeping her from being able to do this. So the steps she took after that and the resources she used, like the affirmations, writing them down, journaling them, using the app, those are all very specific things she did. And she did it every day, not just randomly. Those are things she did and resources she used in order to overcome. So she identified it. She asked her dad. She found out about the ways that she could, change the narrative in her mind. And then she did these very specific things. So writing things, using the app, those all count as resources for the steps she was taking.
Susie, I have a quick question here that I get from a lot of people that are applying with this essay, and that's what makes, I think, failures are hard, especially when you're applying to college. You're not applying to a job way down the road. So how many big failures have I really had? What can make me stand out? In the essays that you've worked the essays that you've worked on with clients, what has made like the best essay version for this particular one stand out from the others?
To be honest, it's all about this second part. The actual failure can be big or it can be small, but what stands out is when you see somebody recognizing the failure and then really working hard to overcome it, not just letting time take its course or just praying a lot. There's nothing wrong with praying, please don't get me wrong, but being very proactive in overcoming it. So no matter how big or small the failure is, it's all about being proactive and really talking about your steps and then what happened because of that. Is that?
I think that's great. Yeah. And for the folks, last week, Christian talked a lot about initiative, and I think we see that theme playing out in these other essays as well. If BYU wants to see you do something, not like the world happen to you.
Correct. Yeah.
That's awesome, Susie.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Okay. So as you're considering, okay, hopefully you've narrowed it down to one or maybe two experiences. And so you're already considering, can I show the steps I've took to recover? Did I have some resources? Another thing I want you to the last two things to consider are how and why are you different today? And then and we'll talk about that in a minute. BYU has 4 aims of a BYU education that really should be emphasized in these essays. What I usually suggest is that you choose one of the 4 aims that the story or experience that you are writing about in an essay can connect to. Most of the time, this essay, people use character building because almost always the how and why are you different today shows that you've built your character. So I'm just highlighting that as an aim that this essay works well with. But any of these 4 aims, depending on what your story is, could work. And I highly suggest that you bring that out in your essays and don't just let it fall in the background. These aims are really important. So if we'll go to the next slide, I'm going to kind of have us look over that. Okay, this is the last section of this same essay that this girl wrote. I'm going to read it aloud. Thus, I learned that the fears I had surrounding public speaking only prevented me from sharing my unique and impactful ideas with others. This realization allowed me to make an internal switch and take the approach that I actually wanted to express my thoughts and share what I have learned with others. My efforts have strengthened my character, making me confident speaking in front of others. Whether it's giving a talk in church or a presentation in class, I can now effectively communicate all that I bring with me to others at BYU. Okay, so 2 questions. Somebody asked what the 4 aims are. They will be popping up again, but for this essay, we're going to talk about character building, and then you'll see the 4 aims again in this in a little while. So I'd like you to consider what she wrote, how and why she's different today. I'd like you to write in the chat, what is it she was able to tell to explain that she is now different? So I just like, what about in this section shows that she is actually different because of this? She can speak publicly. She is confident in her speaking. So she was fearful and now she feels strength. Yeah, so and then what her aim is, and her aim is character building. She can clearly communicate with people now, and she wasn't able to as much before. So what she has done in this last section is she has clearly articulated that her character was built, and she did that by explaining how and why she is different today. And since that's part of the prompt, it's very easy to have character building be in this essay because it just goes along with the prompt. So any other questions? She now has a positive mindset. All right, so
Susie,
keep that in mind.
Is this like as strong of an essay as we can expect for this? Is there anything that you would, if you had to go and edit this essay again, is there anything that you would think that you would, what would you pay attention to improve it beyond this? Or is this about as good as you'll see?
This is pretty good. I might, so the very last, I like that she explained that the before and after, that's really important. And the very last sentence, sometimes I might work with her on a little more of a punch in the last sentence to show forward thinking. Okay, I've made all of this progress. And what is it that what kind of goal can I have for BYU? So she does talk about, she can effectively communicate all that, at BYU, but it could be maybe a little more specific, more goal oriented.
Yeah.
Any ideas you have, Amanda?
No, I love the forward thinking piece. And I think if you're thinking about how this essay is going to be reviewed by the AdCom, like to your original question of what's the intention behind this essay prompt, BYU wants to admit people who are going to come and like bring something unique to the campus, right?
Right.
And so the intention, part of the intention behind this essay is how have you changed? How has your character been built? And then how will you continue forward at BYU and beyond in this like new growth, elevated space than you were before? So I love that point about how have you changed and how are you bringing it forward to BYU? James had a question. I think you answered it maybe a little bit, but just to reiterate, does the type of failure doesn't matter as much as what you did to fix it?
I think that's true because we don't have control over what goes wrong in our lives. Some of us will have huge failures and others really won't, but it's what we did to fix it. It's that second part of the essay that's actually 3/4 of the essay that's the most important.
Awesome.
All right. I'd like you to spend based on everything that we've worked on, I'd like you to spend a few minutes right now, just any additional ideas you've gotten from what we've talked about. I would love to have you write them down on your paper or in your document so that you are ready to actually write this essay once we're done with this. So just take a few minutes, write any additional ideas down.
Susie, there's a question in the chat that I want to talk about, but maybe in a slightly different way. Said that this essay, how do we grab readers' attention? Because this didn't stand out to me. And I think what I would answer, and then I would love your thoughts, is that what's cool about this essay is it's personal to her. It is something that she encountered. It like severely, it was like a big blocker to her, and then she took very intentional steps, and now is better because of it. You don't need to, BYU doesn't expect you to have solved cancer or hike Mount Everest, but what have you, what is true to you in your personal story? I think this goes back to what we talked about last session of you don't need to present a picture that you think BYU wants to see of this glamorized, glitzy person. It really is about you and your story. Is there anything that you would add to that, Susie?
I agree with that because like I said a minute ago, the things that go wrong in our lives are not something that we write. It happens to us often. And so it doesn't, if it stands out to you because it's important to you, like it did with this applicant, it's fine. You start with the story that has made a big impact on you for whatever reason. And if it's personal impact, it's not an impact that everybody would think was a big deal.
Yeah, that's great. Remember your audience too. You're not trying to get a book deal. They're reading you to admit you as a student to BYU. It doesn't need to be, entertaining in that sense.
Right. Yes. Okay. All right. So I think we are ready to move on to essay number 4.
Yes, gonna take a quick, there were some questions about this whole Granite credit union stuff. Mary, if you are here, would like for you to speak as a representative about what exactly is going on here.
I am here. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to have a few moments to speak. So as Amelia stated at the beginning of this presentation, Granite Credit Union is making you an offer. If you open up an account, we'll put $50 in that account. And we have really great products and services, and we're developing a few things for students specifically that will be coming in the future. One of those is a low rate computer loan, and another one is a student certificate where they could earn a higher rate of return on savings. But the other cool thing is we will be offering a workshop that will follow these 4 workshops that these wonderful people are teaching. It's going to be on financial literacy, September 26th. In order to be eligible for the scholarship opportunity, and I don't know if you want to advance the slide, Amelia. I think that Nick put one in there about the scholarship. Okay, so there's on the 26th. Oh, if you go back one, sorry. So the 26th of September, we're going to do a financial literacy workshop that Granite Credit Union will teach, and you'll learn financial principles you'll need to succeed as a college student Plus, you'll get insights into BYU scholarships as well. So you'll want to attend that that workshop. But if you attend these 4 workshops, the financial literacy workshop and open an account and submit, if you'll advance to the next slide. If you'll submit your essay from the number 2 essay to us, and there's a link where you'll submit that, we will put you into an opportunity to get one of 5 $2,000 scholarships. So it's exciting. And with our scholarships, it can be used for anything school related if you're granted that. So does anybody have any questions? I think, will you give them these links after this session?
Yes, I was just gonna
Okay.
say, I'll drop the links in the chat and you will also get follow-up emails with these guys, 5 $2,000 scholarships, and there's how many people here? Almost 200 people here. Those are good odds. So shout out, thank you so much to Granite Credit Union for their generosity in offering these scholarships, and definitely apply. You are already going to be writing your essay number 2. You might as well submit it for a scholarship. And importantly,
Yes.
it doesn't need to be their final version of the essay, right, Mary? It can be a rough
Right.
draft.
Correct. It can be a rough draft. We're just going to be choosing one of the, 5 of those people that do that. The other thing is, this is a free workshop, just like this boot camp is free. So our workshop for financial literacy is free. You do not have to be a US citizen. We actually open accounts for non-social, non-ITIN people as well. And so you don't have to do that. And then the scholarship is not BYU specific, although I think you all are trying to get into BYU, so you could use it for BYU. But if you weren't able to get into BYU, then you could use it for another college or university. And let's see, it says, is it dependent? I don't know what that question meant by Lucas Losi. Is it dependent?
As in, did you have to go to BYU to get it?
You don't, because I know that if you don't get into BYU, you'll probably want to attend another university or college, I would probably guess, and it can be used for that as well.
Mary, let's do one more question. Do you have to be in Utah?
Okay, you do not have to be in Utah if, so we have a way for people to join the credit union through a Murray Education Foundation, that you make a donation that way. So we can do that.
Awesome.
And yes, you can open the account online. That's one of the links that she'll send you. And that's where you would, when you open up that account, you'll put the BYU 50, the promotional code, and that's how we'll fund it with the $50. And then this slide right here that is present shows where you submit your essay for the scholarship. And so she's going to drop those links in there.
Just drop those. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll be sending up follow-up emails as well.
Yeah, that's great. And if you don't open it this time, like this week, just know before the 26th, sign up for that financial literacy workshop, and you have until that time to submit your essay. Okay.
Thank you, Mary.
Do you want my contact details as well, or no? You can.
We'll send it out in the email.
Thank you. And you
Thanks
guys
so
are
much.
great. Good luck with your essay writing and your entrance into BYU. I hope you make it.
They're all going to get in with the tips
Yeah.
from this boot camp.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Susie, back to you.
All right. Okay, we are on essay number 4. So I'd love for you to open a new document or new piece of paper, and we are going to dig into this essay. All right, here I'm going to read the prompt. We strive to create a rich and varied educational environment through admitting students with a wide range of goals, interests, skills, and talents, life experiences, perspectives, and cultures. Tell us your story. What will you contribute to our university community, and be specific about that contribution? So, BYU has, I'm not even sure how many students 30,000, I don't even know, I haven't looked it up recently, is a lot of students. And they really don't want to admit a bunch of just robots. They don't want to admit everyone that's kind of has the same, is the same. They want all kinds of variety, because that's what makes the learning environment rich and engaging, when you have all kinds of people that have lots of experiences on the campus together. And so there will be a lot of things about what you've done in your life that are similar to other applicants, just by the nature that you're a BYU applicant, and a lot of BYU applicants have similar backgrounds. But every one of you is unique and has something different. And that is what we're going to try and pull out for this essay. And what is different about you? How can you use that to contribute something to campus? So I'd like you to just get out your papers or your document and just brainstorm, just start writing right now. And I'm going to just read these questions. If you meet somebody that doesn't know you at all, what would be the things that would be the most important thing for them to know? Just brag. Just what are the things about you that somebody absolutely needs to know? Especially the things that make you unique, different, interesting, terrific. Just write down anything that comes to mind. If you've done the pre-work assignment brainstorming, then you already have a lot of ideas that you have written down, and you can pull that up and look at those and add to those.
I love this essay, Susie. I think it's so fun to work with people on this, because it really is just tell us your story. One thing I'll add for everyone is, I know this one can feel a little bit scary. I know when I was applying, I was like, what? I don't know if how am I unique? You know, I'm just a person like everyone else. I'm a high school student. I wanted to study the same things as people. I want to go on and do the same things as people. Don't worry or stress about it. Susie will talk about this later, but just start writing. You know, what are you excited about? What do you like doing with your time? What do your friends like about you? What is your family like about you? Some of these like more general and broad things can help get the ball rolling. Don't worry about putting down this one thing that makes you the most unique and special person on the planet.
Yeah, just lots of things. And in fact, my guess is a lot of you will not come up with exactly what you're going to write with in the boot camp. You'll be going back to parents and people who know you really well, and they can give you more ideas. I'm just hoping that I can give you a lot of ideas to start with, because Amelia's right. This is, I think, the hardest one for people to decide what to write about, but once you've gotten it, it's a great essay to write.
Someone just DM'd me a good question that I think is maybe worth discussing while people are writing. And that's, should I focus on one aspect, on one thing, or should I go as broad as I can and list all of these things that make me me? And could you do either? What's your thought there?
My thought is it's better to be more specific, because when you are focusing on fewer things, you're able to go deeper. And when you're trying to list a lot, it's more of a surface level discussion. But I will give you some examples so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about, because that's a broad answer. I think overall that's a broad answer, but yeah, no, everyone is different. So
yep, that's why we recommend working with a coach, an expert like Susie too, because I think some of this just helps to have that expertise, that outside perspective.
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And this also, and like I said, and like Amelia said, whatever you've written down is great. You may be adding, hopefully, especially if you can't nail it down right now, after the boot camp, I'd love for you to talk to your parents and your friends. What do you like about me? What's great about me? And they often have ideas that you don't. So keep that in mind. But as you're thinking about what you can contribute and what about your story is interesting to write about, as unique as you can get it, and then definitely what kind of an impact you can have because of it at BYU. And then again, it's a before and after. How has the story you tell, how has that made you who you are so that you can contribute very specifically to campus? So keep those things in mind. And on the next slide, I'm actually going to give you some ideas of what some successful applicants have written about, because it can be so many different things. I don't want you to put yourself into a box that it has to be just, yeah. Anyway, it can be so many different things because all of you are different and all of you have something different to share. So here are a few examples. One client I worked with, he has a sister with extreme anxiety. And because of the way he has worked with her over the years and what he has learned from her, he can come to campus and he has a unique ability to have compassion, to be very adaptable in situations, because he's had to be very adaptable when his sister has shown that anxiety in different, all kinds of situations. And he also knows how to take action. So those three things, because of his sister and what he's learned from her over the years, he can come to campus and he can make that contribution that in his character. Another applicant, she has spent a significant time in other countries. It's a significant amount of time in other countries interacting with people from a lot of cultures. And she has spent enough time that she has experiences with them. And because of that, she can come to campus and she has a global empathy. She understands from a different point of view what students from other countries could be feeling and experiencing when they're on campus. And she's also good at building relationships with people from other countries. So that can be her contribution. Another one, this is really fun, but it worked really well. This is a guy who is 6'7". He's a redhead and he always stands out. Everywhere he goes, he stands out. But he also has made an effort to, he lives in a community and he's in a high school where there are hardly any LDS people. And so he's made a lot of decisions so that his decisions stand out and he's an example to people. So not only does he stand out physically, but he's been able to stand out with the decisions he's making. And that's what he can bring to campus, that contribution, because he's used to just standing firm in what he believes. Another applicant, her dad is probably a decade or two older than most dads of her friends. And so because of that, she listened to so many types of music and was exposed to all kinds of movies, so many things that her culture is a lot broader than a lot of kids her age. And so what she can bring to campus is just an expanded perspective. She can really get along with professors because she's got all of these cultural references that a lot of kids her age don't have. And that made a really great essay. So those are some examples. And I hope that you see that there are lots of things that you can do with this essay.
Yeah, one thing, Susie, that you talked about that I want to point out here. Notice that the thing on the left, the story, can be pretty high level, and it doesn't have to be the most unique thing in the world, right? Like there's a lot of redheads who are tall out there. There's a lot of people that have spent time in other countries. But one great way to take that is to go deeper, like Susie said. So how can you connect that kind of high level thing, a thing that is specific to you or feels important to you? And how can you go down a couple layers and connect that to your goals and your background and your interests and all of the things? So start high level, pick something that's important to you. And then I think the really good stuff is when you start to dig a little bit deeper. Would you agree with that, Susie?
Absolutely. And because when you start digging deeper, then you will start thinking, oh, this really is something that is unique that I can bring to campus and in a unique way that a lot of other people won't be able to. So that's how, so you're digging deep, figuring out how that has made you who you are, and then how that will help you actually contribute on the campus. So I love that.
Awesome.
I love that. Okay, so I want you to, so what we're going to do one more time is to go into breakout rooms. And I want you to just really think about the things that you wrote on your paper, or maybe you've thought about other things based on the examples I gave. And I would love for you to talk to your group, give an example of one thing about you, even if you don't know whether you're going to use it. We're just practicing talking about something about you and then how that can help you contribute. So it can be high level. It doesn't have to be the thing you're going to end up using, but I'd love for you to start to talk to your group. Each of you bring one thing to the table, to the group, and then have the group help you figure out, or you figure out how that you can contribute to campus because of that thing that you've listed.
Awesome. If you go into a room and there's no one there, or the people that are there are off camera, come back into the main room and tell me, and I'll put you in one with people. Ready for me to open them, Susie?
I'm ready.
Okay, we'll give you about 4 minutes.
I think I'll stay in here.
Great.
Okay, if anybody is in this room, I would love, you can write in the chat or just talk and give an idea of something that you're thinking about that you could write about, or something about you that'll help you contribute. And Amelia, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to think of what I could say about me.
Yeah,
I grew up, okay, here's one. My experience from my engineering classes and projects. Okay, there's a lot of people who don't have that experience. So I love that as a jumping off point. Because that's going to give you very specific knowledge and experiences that you can bring to campus that other people won't have. Okay.
I will say for that one, Kyle, if you can mention a specific experience or a specific project, like did you build a specific car that you really liked and are interested in pursuing, the more specific that you can get there. But I agree with Susie, it's a great starting point.
Okay, excellent. I'm homeschooled by my mom, who is, I don't want to pronounce that right, Singaporean. Okay, homeschooled is an excellent starting off point. Lived in 4 different states, 3 in the past 10 years. That's excellent. A lot of people, many people have not done that. That will give you a very unique way of contributing. Oh, okay. Fostered kittens for our animal shelter. Only LDS member at my high school. What could I talk about? So I have worked with several clients who they have a similar story and or a similar situation. So it's a really great one, because if you're the only LDS member or one of a few LDS members at your high school, you have to make daily decisions about what type of, like, who you want to be, because a lot of people are watching you in different ways. And so there can be you can come up with a very specific story, and that's kind of a way to start it off. Amelia, if you want to add to that.
I love that. I think, like we've talked about, it's okay, there's going to be other people, you can already see in the chat, there's other people that are in similar situations. And so it's going a little bit deeper and saying, okay, how has that affected you? How has it changed how you've seen the world? In what ways have you been a missionary in your high school? I think thinking like, take that and then journal about it or talk to your parents about it and think about how it's formed you as a person, and in what ways you'll take how it's formed you as a person and bring it to campus again.
Yeah, for sure. Is it not unique enough to talk about being the only LDS member? It's great, because here's the thing. It's your story. Whatever your story about being the only LDS member on camp in your school is yours. The only way it wouldn't be unique is if you just said, I'm the only LDS member, and you stopped there. But what Amelia was just saying is bringing in really specific experiences you've had. All of those things are going to be yours only, and they won't belong to anyone else. So that it can be very unique and very it can be a great thing to write about.
Yeah, I agree with Susie that maybe you're not the only one that is the only LDS member, but you're the only one who used that to start a a religious affiliation group at your high school, or you're the only one that like it's changed how you've thought about the world in a certain way. Like I think a lot of times the surface level thing are not going to be, it's not like you're 1 in a billion on like the surface level thing, but you are 1 in a billion in how the
you.
experience shaped you and your life thus far.
Exactly. I love that. Cybersecurity internship with Walmart. I would love to read that essay. I love people and make friends everywhere I go. Just started a new school and have a huge group. So that can be unique depending on what story you tell. Not everybody is able to walk onto camp. Not everyone will be able to walk onto the BYU campus and make a bunch of friends. So that is something that you can do that not everyone can do. Again, what about that story? What has happened because of that? Who have you been able to influence because of your ability to do that? What specifically can you talk about?
Susie, I'm gonna close the rooms and they'll have 60 seconds to come back. Is that okay?
Great, that's perfect.
Okay.
I have not been paying attention to time.
No, we're doing good.
Okay.
I really do love this essay, but it's so hard.
It is. There's so much you could write about. Like my husband, for example, his dad never went to college. So that's a unique thing that really has shaped him into who he was. And that's what he wrote about. Or he would have if this essay would have been around way back then, but that's something that it shaped him. And so there can be really specific circumstances in your family that shape you as well. And that can also be something to write about. I guess I want to emphasize that those are also very valid, those types of things. Okay. All right. Are people back in?
Oh my gosh, I forgot to press the button. Hold on. Now they have 60 seconds.
Okay. Okay.
Give them a little extra time.
All right. I've grown up like an older sister to kids with Down syndrome. I mean, that's an excellent story. That's an excellent essay because you'll have a story or more than one story to share that shows the way you can show up on campus because of what has happened, the experiences you've had with kids with Down syndrome. All right. And that something I would write about today is I actually had a paper route when I was a kid. I don't think they do paper routes anymore. It's probably a safety issue, but that totally shaped me. Like something that you've done that's a hard work or some sort of work experience that can shape you in a lot of different ways. And that's a great thing to write about as well.
I love that you did the paper out. That's such a fun story.
Oh, I have so many stories about
I
it.
bet
Yes.
you do.
Oh man, back in the day. Okay. All right. I guess you can just tell me when people are back in.
We're good to go.
Okay. All right. I hope I hope those breakout rooms helped you and gave you ideas because by hearing other people's ideas, sometimes that gives you an idea of something that you hadn't thought about. So I'm just going to give you a few minutes right now to write down all the ideas that have come to mind. And I want you to keep in mind, and I haven't talked about this, so I need to talk about the aim for a minute. I'm sorry. Let me read the 4 aims. And depending on the story, your story will determine what aim you focus on. So there's spiritually strengthening, intellectually enlarging, lifelong learning and service, and character building. So one thing to think about as you're writing down ideas is what of those 4 aims fits in pretty well with the story. So I'd like you just to spend a few minutes writing down all the rest of your ideas for this one. And you're welcome to put questions in the chat as we're doing this. Amelia, if you see anything in the chat that we should call out, let me know.
Yeah, someone just messaged me a good question. How do I tie the aim into the essay without it being clunky? Do we state it? Do we imply it? I think this is a good question of like how much do I need to force the aim into the story, and can I do that in a way that feels natural and real?
It's a really good question. I think that it needs to be heavily implied, just because all over the website, the BYU website, when you are on admissions, it says to focus on the aims. But sometimes my clients will state it, but it goes in with this sentence. If it can feel clunky. However, if you're talking about the idea like spiritually strengthening, you don't have to say I was spiritually strengthened. There are a lot of ways to talk about that. Your testimony grew, you grew closer to Christ. There are a lot of ways to talk about it without saying spiritually strengthened. Intellectually engaging, there are a lot of ways to talk about you're academically challenged. There are some things in your future that you are going to talk about your academic future. That's all intellectual. Is that helpful a little bit?
I think that's great. The other thing I might add is you can be intentional in using the aims when you pick your story. And if the aims show that you have become more spiritually strengthened, or if the story shows that you have grown, you have shown personal growth, that character building aspect, then I think it becomes really easy, and because
Yeah,
the aim
it's
is
part of it.
implied in the story. Yeah. And so
Correct.
you can just answer the question kind of. But if your story doesn't feel, if you have a really great story and you don't feel like the aim is super well tied into it, that's where I think Susie's point becomes like there's ways that you can tell the story in a way that shows the aims. Also
Right.
something that you should work with a coach or with a parent or someone else.
Yeah, for sure. Is it bad to use the same aim for multiple essays? There are five essays and 4 aims. I think it's I think it's nice to try and target all 4 of them somehow, but you shouldn't use character building in every single essay, is what I'm saying. You should try and because you're talking about lots of different parts of who you are. And so those aims are parts of who you are, and it's not only one. Okay. There's something that a couple people are asking, and I'll go ahead. So somebody's asking, is there a certain writing style they're looking for? Should I focus on a specific story? I would not try and include all the aims in one essay. If that feels like it would get too complicated, I would kind of focus on one per essay.
There's also not that many stories where you've built your character, you're serving others, you are spiritually strengthened, and you are intellectually enlarged.
If clients try and do that, I have them change it. It just gets too much. And I don't think that the admissions committee wants to read that. And also it doesn't feel super genuine if you try and put them all in, kind of like what Amelia's saying. Okay. I don't know how much Christian talked about this. So let me just give you, in response to questions about this type of style and of writing and stories, this is a narrative. These are stories. These essays are like you're sitting down with a good friend and telling them your story and talking to them. And they should always start out with a story. That's why as we're going through each of these essays, I'm trying to have you come up with an experience or story for each one. What the essay should not start out with is, for example, I will contribute to BYU this way. You start out with a story. You answer the questions with a story and your thoughts as if you're sitting down and talking to someone. It's very much not formal, if that's helpful. Hopefully that will be helpful. Okay. I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking, well, go ahead, Amelia.
Yeah, let's get to this last essay. And guys, I know that one feels hard. Just start drafting. Your first draft is not going to be in 99.999% of cases the one that you turn in, and I think sometimes it's the hardest one. So we'll get to this at the end. This is Susie's homework, but just get words on the paper if you can for this one.
For sure. Okay, so pull up a new document, get a new piece of paper, and we are going to work on, talk about essay number five. A BYU education will be spiritually strengthening. So it's stating it right off. That is how BYU actually plans the experience to be spiritually strengthening. BYU students have a unique opportunity to seek learning by study and by faith. Again, it's telling you this. It's a statement. So those first two are statements. And then here's what you need to write about. Describe how you would explain to a friend or family member the reasons you want to learn in an environment like this. So what kind of environment? An environment that is spiritually strengthening and where you're going to be learning by study and by faith. So what this essay is not asking you is why you want to go to BYU, globally speaking, because if that's what we're asking, you would say things like, because my friends are there, because it's cheaper than other schools. There are lots of reasons people go, but the reasons it's asking you to talk about in this essay are why you want to learn in the environment that BYU is setting up for you, which is a spiritually strengthening environment where they talk about learning through a faith-based lens. So keep that in mind. And I would like you to just start writing some ideas. And I'll just read these questions and you can start writing ideas as I'm reading them. How do you think, so one thing you can think about is how BYU teaches every subject by study and faith. What do you know about the way classes are taught? That can be helpful to think about. What's an experience that has strengthened your testimony, which is one of the testimony building experiences help prepare you to have more of them on the BYU campus. And then also any reasons that come to mind why the study and faith learning environment appeals to you and why that is where you want to go instead of any other university that would also have good education.
One thing I'll add here that I found helpful, I did this and I would recommend it, is if you have a parent that went to BYU, friends that went to BYU, an older sibling that went to BYU, talk to them about their experience. What did they like about being there? How did they feel like their experience was unique on BYU's campus? This will give you a lot of good fodder to pull from for this essay and get the wheels turning. If you are a first gen applicant or the first one to go to BYU, go online, plenty of alumni will be interested in talking with you. If you want to study political science, I study political science, I'm happy to talk to you. There's so many alumni out there that are willing to share their story, but by talking to people who have actually gone through this, I think you'll get a much better idea for what that experience was really like for the people that went through it.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Oh, I think this is such a good question, Susie. What if you were a non-member?
Okay, so if you're a non-member, I think what Amelia said is extra important. Talk to people who've been there, because you have less of an idea of what it is, and you really want to talk and just to find out what the experience is. And then if you're going to apply to BYU, then there are things about the way that BYU approaches education that you want to think about. What about that appeals to you? So it's not going to be the same type of essay that someone who's a member would write, but you still want to find out the same things that Amelia was talking about, and then think about what about those things is something that you want, and which is one of the reasons you're applying. If you have anything to add, Amelia, I'd love that, but that's what comes to mind.
I think that was so well said. And I agree. If you're applying to BYU and you're a non-member, there must be a reason why you're applying. And I think it's digging into that a little bit deeper. What about BYU? What are you excited about with BYU in particular? BYU is a very, very unique environment. There's no other campus like it. So why would you be excited to study there? And then how will you make the most of your time there? I think there's a lot of universities. There's only one BYU. Well, there's three, but there's one BYU Provo. And there's a limited number of spots, right? So to think again about the BYU AdCom and how they're perceiving this question, is we want to bring people who are going to make the best use of this environment. We're going to bring people who will contribute to this very spiritually strengthening environment. And can you show that you will do that through this essay?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Somebody asked, do you still use a story for this essay? I think a lot of people use some sort of a spiritually strengthening experience story to anchor the essay, because one of the reasons they want to be a BYU is to hopefully be able to have more of those types of experiences that will strengthen their testimony even more. So many people use an experience to anchor the essay. Some people don't, because they have a lot of other things that they're writing about, maybe experiences with people that have already been there. But I highly recommend thinking of one, so that's a really good way to anchor the essay. Yeah. Would you talk about the honor code? So specifically, it's a good question. I know that Christian said in the last session that it's a love letter to the BYU honor code. I think that you can talk about the things about the honor code that appeal to you and why you want to be in an environment where other people will be have the same values as, you know, and you can maybe pull out some of the things from the honor code that are specifically appealing. I don't know that you have to state it out, because I don't know, Amelia.
No, I totally agree. I think if the honor code piece plays well into the story and the experience that you want to talk about, then you could totally bring it up. But if I was the BYU AdCom and I had to read 8,000 essays that all mention different aspects of the BYU honor code, I would not enjoy that. So I think if you connect it to your personal story, to your experience in a very natural and genuine way, like Susie said, then it's great. But don't feel like you have to force bringing up the honor code in order to make this essay efficient.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I am going to, okay, so I just want you to kind of visualize, this slide kind of helps you visualize the things to think about. So you're choosing your story and your reasons based on your unique take. When I say unique and differentiating in this regard, it's what about BYU that really appeals to you. Different things about that environment will appeal to different people. So this is unique to you. What kind of a personal spiritual impact do you want to have? Do you have a goal for that? What has prepared you for that? Because it is a faith-based learning environment. And then you can think a lot about, because of your goals and why you're going there, how is that going to help you grow intellectually and spiritually? And then also how you can help others grow, others on the campus do the same thing. These are things to think about as you're deciding what to write. As you're thinking about it, I'm just gonna give you a few examples of what people have written. I don't want this to narrow down your ideas, because every single one of you will have a slightly different reasons, but it could be helpful. One admit he has a twin brother, and his twin brother started making very different decisions than he did in high school. So by the time they were ready to apply, his brother was not
in my breakout room are so
not wanting to go to BYU at all, because he was making a lot of decisions that would not make him feel comfortable there anyway. So, and that was really hard for this client, because they had been best friends. So one of the reasons he says he and his twin now had different friends and different trajectories. And despite how difficult and dark things seemed in that moment, I learned some things about myself. And that's why I want to go to BYU. And then he goes on to explain some things that he knows will be on the BYU campus that will help him continue to grow in the way that he has decided he wanted to grow. So that's one essay. Okay, there's another one. This this student, he was not a member of the church when he was at the beginning of high school. I think one of his parents was, but his parents basically said, you can decide whether or not you want to be baptized. but his mom came to him and said, I do want you to go to seminary though. Try and go to seminary in case you ever decide to go to BYU. And him deciding to go to seminary changed the trajectory of his own life. And it changed who he started hanging out with, and he eventually was baptized. But because he has seen a very stark contrast between before and after he started to like live the principles of the gospel, he is able to talk about the reasons he wants to go to BYU, because he doesn't want any of the before in his future academic or social life. So that's another idea for you.
I don't know about you, Susie. I feel like this essay, I see the most variation among applicants. Some people it is very story based. Some it's very like it's one particular moment in their life. For others, it's a theme, like the seminary one where they feel like it changed them over the course of time. For others, it's kind of a really spiritual experience. I've seen so many variations in this essay. Have you as well?
Yes, it's hard to, I almost hesitated to give you examples because of that very reason. Everybody has, you have your own story. This is what the admissions committee loves to see. They want to see all sides of you through these essays, and you have your very own unique reasons that you want to go to BYU, and you have had all kinds of experiences that have led you up to this moment. And that's what they want to hear about. They want to hear about that. What experience or thought process or family situation has brought you to the point where this is your target university? And it can be so, just like Amelia said, I'm kind of repeating what she just said. It can be so many different types of things because you are uniquely you, and you have your very specific reasons that you want to apply.
It's hard because I think there's a lot of questions like, oh, should I start with the story or should I start with an experience? And it's hard for us to give kind of a blueprint here. It really is dependent on you and your spiritual experiences thus far.
And some of you may have spiritual goals or goals that you know that studying by learning and faith will help you achieve, but you're not there yet. That's okay too. There's so many ways to approach it because we're all in different places. And so you can think about goals and what you want your future to be, and not just what your past has been. You can think about, you can talk about both those things or one of those things more than another. It's just another way to look at it. Okay, so basically, based on the ideas I've given you, the aim that many people focus on in this essay is spiritually strengthening, because the very beginning of the essay actually tells you that a BYU education will be spiritually strengthening, but you don't have to. There are, depending on your reasons for going, you could also think of, focus on a different aim. That's just the one that most people use. So I'd just love for you to write some ideas down so you can have some fresh ideas in your brain when you're starting to write the essay.
Susie, while they are thinking, and again, like just start jotting down things. Don't worry about the levity of it. Just get some ideas on paper.
Yeah.
There's a good question in the chat. I want to make it a little bit more broad. If I want to serve a mission, if I'm interested in serving a mission, if I'm going to serve a mission and then defer, how do I weave a mission into this essay? Do I even need to?
I don't think you need to, because your decision to defer or not, that it's not something that that needs to be brought up in your essays. So if your desire to serve a mission is strongly connected to the reason why you want to go to BYU, and you have a narrative and a story that really goes well with that, then that can be your essay. But don't do it just because you are probably going to defer. And you can add to what I'm saying, Amelia, but those are my thoughts on that.
I think that's great. I'm going to start sounding like a broken record where if you have these things you want to talk about, if they fit naturally into your experiences and the stories that you want to talk about, then you can absolutely mention them. There's nothing that, like someone asked earlier about, are there any essays topics that I should stay away from? And I would say the answer is no. There are certain things that you probably shouldn't talk about given your context and your background, but there aren't like general things that you can't talk about. Same with the person that just asked about FSY. You can totally talk about FSY being analogous to a BYU learning environment, but there's a lot of people. I would guess that there are a lot of people on this call went to FSY. So how can you differentiate your experience at FSY within that? So
Yeah.
again, it's like the high level things a lot will be similar, but how can you take it a step deeper? And if it feels true and meaningful and important to you, then you can write about it, regardless of what it is.
That's right. And like FSY, for example, hundreds of people go there, but only you had one specific aha moment or one specific conversation that changed your trajectory for some reason. And that's what you focus on if that's what you decide to write about. You should never start your essays by restating the question. Nope. First of all, you don't have very many characters to work with. As you start to write, you'll realize how short they are. That just basically wastes characters. You get right down to your story and your conversation. You never have to restate anything that's in the actual prompt, because the admissions officers know what's there and you don't want to waste your characters. Can I quote a BYU professor in my essay? It comes back down to wasting characters. You have to be really careful. I'm not going to say no, but it has to be integral to your essay, and you should do as small as part of the quote as you can, because most of the words, if not all of them in your essay, should be yours. Okay. All right, so let's just answer a few more questions, and then I think we can go to the last slide, and then really talk about kind of how to move forward. I think avoiding quotes altogether is a really good general rule, unless the quote is so important to the story that you can't leave it out. Can I talk about how a conference talk forced me to fix a relationship? Absolutely. That could make it sounds like it could be a really important story for you.
I agree. If it's like you read a line in a book and it changed your trajectory, then maybe you can quote it. But just like mentioning something that someone said just for the sake of it is not personal to you. Okay, Susie, if you're ready, we're gonna do some Q&A. Are you good
For sure.
to go? Okay.
For sure. Yeah.
You can talk about specific things that we've talked about today. Would stick with the 3 essays, given that's what we've talked about. It's a Slido link. People are great at using the chat, so let's just stick to the chat. Ask your questions there, and then Susie, I'll field them to you.
Okay.
But
Okay.
ignore the QR code and the Slido. Let's just use the chat.
Okay. Can I give an example from a sacrament meeting talk someone gave? That's a tricky one. I would have to have more details about it. If it changed your life, and that's the story you're telling in the essay, then that could work. But you would want to be very, very scant on those details, and most of the details should be about what that did with you and your journey because of it.
Susie, it looks like we did a really great job answering questions throughout. Oh, I like this one. How do we make sure our brag essay is unique enough?
That's a good question. By the way, yes, I'm LDS. How I served a mission in Vienna, Austria, a long, long time ago. So if it's something that you are bragging about yourself and your story, even if 100 people have it's kind of like what Amelia said a while ago, the story that you're telling, it can be something that other people have, but all the reasons and the details about it and how you can uniquely go to campus with it, if it's yours, then it's unique. If all the rest of the part is yours, then it's unique. Anytime anybody can write the essay because it's so generic, then that's not unique enough. But if you're the only one who can write it because it's about you, then it's unique.
Totally agree. Want to double down on that because I think it's a great litmus test of once you have a draft of your essay, if you could answer, could anyone else submit this essay? If the answer is yes, then it is not distinct, unique, or personal enough. There's a great question in here, Susie. How can I just determine which story to put in what essay? So I have like a list of experiences and things that feel important to me. How do I figure out what to put where?
Such a good question. What I have my clients do is we have a big picture list. So because all of your important stories, or at least there are some that you know need to show up in an essay, but sometimes they can show up in more than one essay. So you have everything in front of you at one time. You don't decide essays one at a time. I mean, you do a little bit, but then you look at everything together and you make sure that you literally start putting stories in the essays you think they best work. And then you look over it, you talk about it with your essay coach, with your parents, and sometimes you end up making little changes. And all of that you can do before you start writing, because it's easier to do the overall picture before you start writing.
That's great. We've got some German speakers in the
Oh.
for you.
I'm not going to speak German because it's been a while, but I can read what you're saying.
Love it.
It's great.
I like this question. Is there a point, so we've talked a lot about today about differentiating yourself, trying to be as unique as possible. Someone asked, is there such a thing as being too different to the point that it hurts your chances?
I can't think of something unless you literally do not want to learn in an environment of faith and study, and you very clearly state that, in your BYU essay. But I can't think of something that would be too different. But I guess certain examples might be if I were to hear them. Amelia, I don't know if.
No, I totally agree. I think BYU wants to admit people, like real people, and that I think that's the point of this. Is like
It is.
We keep saying differentiate yourself and be unique and be specific because you want BYU to see who you actually are and admit like you and not someone else. And I think that's where that piece is.
Yeah.
There's maybe some stories or experiences that are a little bit too personal. And
Yeah.
again, like maybe just ask a coach or ask a parent. But I think generally, no, like you dig deep and be personal and yeah.
Someone asked about politics, stay away from politics. And if you are talking about something personal, something really hard you've gone through that's really personal, you don't want to talk about it unless you have come out on the other side and have a lot of tools under your belt that you've figured out, because you want to always start and end from a place of strength. Okay.
Someone asked who should you have review your essays if you are not using a coach? I think that's a good question. I'll answer and then I'll turn it over to you, Susie. I didn't have a coach when I went through this. I wish that I had, and I would have worked with Susie, let me tell you that. But I did not have one. I think there's such a thing as getting too many perspectives because it kind of dilutes your voice. I would say a parent can be very good. I would say talk to someone that knows you really well. And the question there is like, does this sound like me? Is this me? And then I would also talk to someone who's a good writer, just for like general flow. Does it sound right? Another great thing that I recommend to everyone I work with is once you have an essay draft, read it out loud and stand up and read it out loud. You'll notice a lot of things by doing that you don't when you're writing it in your room over a computer. Susie, would you add anything if you're not
I have so much to say about that. Everything you've said. Okay. If you have an English teacher or a parent, read it. Excellent. But these essays need to sound like they're coming from 18-year-olds, not 50-year-olds. So do not let them take your voice out of it. Do not let them do that, because it's not going to be your voice. And I agree, too many people might dilute it, but I think that one or two people, some people use a parent all the time. One of my clients uses his aunt. She's just really good. Choose at least one person, but not a ton of people, especially for different essays, because you'll get so many different, it's almost like they give you more work than you're trying to have them help you, not give you more work. So just choose who you're going to ask and stick with those people. And another thing, maybe another thing to remember. So I'm a writer, and I've published quite a bit, and I guarantee you that the first draft, between my first draft and what ends up getting published, there might be like 25% overlap. Your first draft is going to feel terrible. You're going to feel like this is horrible. I'm never going to get an essay out of this. But if you never write anything down, then you'll never have something that you can revise and revise until you get to where you want. So it's the start that stops you. It's the start, the first sentence that you're like, don't worry about if it's right. Don't even worry about if it's a full sentence. Just start putting your ideas down, because that's the only way you're going to make progress, is just by writing something that sounds pretty terrible at first. It's totally okay.
I love that. Susie, we are at time. I want to make sure we have time to talk about the take-home assignments. There's one question that I want to end with, and that's, what was your favorite thing about BYU and its learning environment?
So I grew up in Oklahoma, and it was a university town, so it wasn't a bunch of hicks necessarily, but there was one other girl in my graduating class that was LDS, and she and I were like oil and water. The greatest thing for me about the environment was that I could feel safe at learning and talking about a faith-based approach to what I was learning. And I didn't have to kind of stay over in a box and not be able to just talk about how faith kind of integrates with whatever we were talking about in the classroom. That made a big difference for me.
I love that. Okay, ready to close us off with the take-home assignments. And if you didn't get your questions answered, there were a lot. We're out of time tonight. If you've joined the Facebook group, and the link is in the email, we have some coaches in there. We're in there. There's other peers in there. So if you didn't get your question answered, write it in the Facebook group, and we will try to get it answered. Sorry if we didn't have time to answer yours.
All right. So I've already kind of talked about the take-home assignments. I would love for you, let's see, today's Thursday, by the end of the weekend, just draft all 3 of these essays. You have the ideas fresh in your mind. And wouldn't it be great to have a draft of 3 of these essays done by the end of the weekend? I think that, so that is your assignment. Get them done, even if they're not great, get the ideas down. And then that's a huge chunk of the work that you need to do. And it will be literally in your rearview mirror instead of sitting there waiting for you to get done.
Love it. I had someone asked in the chat, can I do like a voice memo? Totally.
Oh, yeah.
I've had people like go on a walk and just have your AirPods in, your headphones, and just, stream of thought, stream of consciousness. It can be a great way to get started.
It's excellent, because a lot of time, yeah, please do that, because that'll sound more natural anyway when you start writing it, if you start that way, for sure. That's
Awesome.
excellent. Yeah.
Yes, just get started, guys. I know it's scary, but just get the first draft done, and it will be easier from there, probably. I'm not going to promise, but probably.
But it'll get there. Thanks so much for showing up. I've had a lot of fun, and I hope that you can just get these written and feel good about making a lot of progress on it. So thank you.
Susie is here volunteering her time to be here tonight. So please join me in thanking her in the chat. Susie, thank you so much. Such great advice for these essays, and hope everyone here feels more confident tackling them. A couple of quick reminders: do the homework for the session, get those essays drafted, open that Granite Credit Union account at granite.org/membership. Again, we'll send out all of these links afterwards, and then submit your BYU essay number 2 for a $2,000 scholarship, because why the heck not? We are doing our free dinner and watch party with pizza at the Provo Kiln for our 4th session. Here's that link again if you didn't get it before. Susie, thank you again. Thank you everyone for being here. I know it's late, and there's many other things to do on a Thursday evening. So thank you for being here.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Good luck.